Hello everyone and welcome to Shine a Spotlight Activating Awareness, the podcast. You're currently listening to Season 4, Episode 10, and our guest today is Alenka Kyslik.
Yeah. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Shine a Spotlight Captivating Awareness, the podcast. And I am handing you over to Alenka.
Hello, lovely to meet you all. I'm Alenka. I'm the founder of Saha Collective. I am a Canadian. I am also an immigrant. I am someone who loves to learn. I'm a very curious person. I like a lot of things. When people ask me my hobbies, I don't really have one. I have many, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with you today.
Well, first and foremost, welcome, and I would love to know a bit about your business and what your business does. And please feel free to share.
So like I said, I founded Saha. The reason I did was because I went through a series of health issues. I did everything the doctors told me to do, and I kept on not getting better. And it happened over years. And I, at some point, said, enough is enough. Like, just because I'm following what the experts are saying doesn't mean that there isn't other answers out there as well. And so I went on my own journey of doing a lot of research, of trying a lot of things that are not covered by traditional health insurance. And I eventually was able to find what worked for me. But it was a struggle because I was in a good place in terms of I could spend money, like I could cut down on things and spend money on my health. For me, I needed to in order to be able to enjoy my life. So it was a obvious decision. I know that's not the case for everyone. And I had enough knowledge to be able to do research, go through and read a lot of scientific articles and kind of get an understanding of what was happening with my body. I felt very lucky and privileged to be able to do that. And what I found was that if you don't know someone who knows someone who can help you, the way that the systems are built right now is you're kind of out of luck. It's really, really hard to get the care that you need without the right connection. And even if you are given a connection, it may not be a good fit for you, or it might not be the right time depending on where you're at. And I thought that was crazy. That we live in this super hyper connected world where we can book a vacation rental on the other side of the world with like very specific, you want a dishwasher, you want a parking spot, whatever, but you can't do anything equivalent for your health. And it made me really frustrated and honestly angry that like people are in this horrible place a lot of times where they're not able to find answers, and they just kind of have to push through. And so my goal really with what I'm building is to connect people to a provider that can actually help you with where you're at. Where when you sit in the room, you feel heard, you feel understood. You don't have to feel like you're justifying your symptoms or your experiences, because that is the most empowering feeling. And it makes a huge difference in the quality of care that you receive and the outcomes that you have. There's really interesting studies behind that as well. But my goal is to basically create both a platform, that's what we're building, a platform that we vet providers that come in that takes care of everything from an administrative perspective for the providers, because that's a big headache for them. But then from a client side, that there's a really high chance you're going to meet someone who can actually help you, versus right now it's kind of, it's a needle in a haystack. You may or may not, and you may get a little closer and you may have wasted time waiting for an appointment, right? So our goal is just kind of streamline all of that in a really easy to use way. So that's what we're building.
Thank you so much for sharing. And in regards to the element of self-discovery and health, what would you say has been the challenges in regards to your business, or you feel that needs to be, which was intriguing for you in your own experience?
Yeah, so when we talk about like self-discovery and health, I think the tough part in the modern world I would say, and I would say like certain populations feel this more than others, is that we feel that in order to survive, we have to push down what our body is feeling, right? You have to like have a cup of coffee to get through the workday. You can't sleep because you just don't have the time. And we ignore a lot of the signals that our body is telling us just to be able to survive and be able to manage. Which, on one hand, sometimes we have to do what we have to do, and everybody has a different tolerance level of what they're able to do. I learned that there are certain breaking points for me personally where like I can only push myself so far, and then my body says, that's funny, you're not doing that anymore. You know, your body, in my case, my body very much rebelled against me. And I've noticed this in a lot of, it's becoming more of a commonality that people are starting to talk about and say, okay, like that's great that that person can push themselves to that point, but I actually survive and function much better if I don't drink coffee and I sleep an extra hour a night. And then my overall productivity is way more than if I force myself to drink that coffee, as an example. I think it's learning to tune into your body and actually listen to what your body needs is really, really hard because you're rewriting what you've spent your entire life doing, which is ignoring your body. And that can be a very tough to then find the care that you need, because sometimes it's hard to admit that like you don't have more than 5 minutes that you can change in your day to take care of yourself. And that's okay. Everybody's got a different amount of space that they can, amount of time that they can take care of themselves. But it means that sometimes you're given recommendations that just will not be a good fit for you in this moment. So my goal is to really help with those connections and get you to someone who can give you what is helpful, because it's not great to speak with people who can't help you with where you're at, because it's a waste of both of your time.
Thank you so much for sharing. And what would you say in regards to your competitors, or are you the only business that's offering this, have you found?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different what are called directories out there. So there are lists of different types of providers that exist that can help you, like with functional medicine, for example, or naturopathic or therapy. There's lists of different types of providers that exist out there. Some of them do offer matchmaking, but generally speaking, it is what I call modality specific. So one type of care, it's specific to that type of care. And what that means is if you know you need therapy and you use their matchmaking process to find a therapist, and that's great. That is wonderful. I'm happy for you that you've now found what you need to find. I think what is really tough is when what doesn't exist out there is when you don't know what you're looking for. You don't know where to start. I haven't been able to find anything out there. If someone wants to contact me with, what they found, I would love to hear it. But what I have seen is when you don't know what you're looking for, there isn't a starting point somewhere other than like trying to Google it or spend a lot of time researching or talking to AI. And even that, like it's limited in the way that it works. Side note on the software side and searchability on AI, it works similar to some aspects of like Google searching it, but it also like those experts that live in those niches generally will not pop up in a lot of these major tools, right? You won't learn that like breath work can be really helpful for stress, generally speaking, from a search on the internet. So you're just really missing out on a huge part of expertise that exists out there. I have found that the matchmaking part doesn't really exist. Some of the other things do, for sure. And from a provider side, they do exist. The difficulty is, like with anything, when you have a very segmented industry where everyone's kind of in their own world, they end up spending a lot more money on services like figuring out their email, figuring out video chatting, etc. By grouping it together, we're able to offer what they need and more for much less. And it makes it overall, because then it costs less to the end client, it costs less to the provider, and it makes everything much more feasible. And we all know that money is tight right now for most people. So anything we can do to make everyone's life easier is the goal.
Brilliant. So there is that option when it comes to costs and being feasible. And it's so interesting that you have shared what you said. And so my other question would be, which we've been shared, the question is, what would be like a kind of, so if someone had a session, what would be the kind of 3 takeaways or 3 steps that you would go through with that person? And how would it kind of, what would the experience be like in kind of simple form?
Yeah. So if we talk about the matchmaking, for example, it takes about 2 minutes. You fill out a form, and then you get results in terms of recommendations, and you can book the recommendation. So let's say you're going through back pain, as an example. You fill out back pain, and you could fill out like where you're at. Like, is this a long-term thing? Is it like a short-term thing? And what are you comfortable with in terms of like more conventional, or as I call it, open to the universe, right? Everyone has their comfort level in terms of the types of services they would like. And then you can go and book. The recommendations could be anything from a massage therapist, acupuncture, chiropractic, to Pilates. It could be someone who does physical therapy. It could be just someone, if you're comfortable with it, who does Reiki or breath work. It really depends on where you're at in terms of your comfort level, and that's where the filtering and matchmaking does. And then you would go ahead and book an appointment just like you do anywhere else, right? Like, it's that part is not, we're not reinventing the wheel there. We're trying to use systems that people use and already understand.
And in regards to where health is and the importance of choice, what would you say are the kind of developments of people's patterns when it comes to health? Would you say that they are wanting to look at alternatives and being able to kind of have kind of realistic than medication in that way? What would you say is your personal outlook from that? Yeah, so what I was asking is, within your personal view, how have you seen people's pattern when it comes to holistic and the alternative type of health?
Yeah, so it's been really interesting. I mean, there's personal anecdotal, and then there's statistical information as well. So what I've noticed is people, when they start to see results in some of these, like, not don't go to, like, not the doctor prescribes something, but let's say you go to some health coach, for example, who helps you modify things in your diet, in your lifestyle, and they start to see progress in there. It tends to be the tip of the iceberg. So it tends to be the starting point that gets them to then be open to more things. You see this also, there's a article, a PubMed meta-analysis, which PubMed is just a place where they collect studies and the medical community. Meta-analysis just means that they analyze a lot of other studies and they put it into kind of a bigger study. So you get a larger group of people. It was about 20,000 people, and it looked and I basically said, if you've tried acupuncture, chiropractic, or massage, like treatment, you're more likely to then be open to other types of treatment, right? And so it just gives you kind of a starting point. What I've started to see, and you see it slightly more in the mainstream as well, is that people are doing things like DNA testing, more like micronutrient blood tests, and other things that just aren't covered by conventional medicine, which tends to be about 15 years behind when something is discovered before it's integrated into what the doctor will prescribe. And that's if they're on top of the latest and greatest, right? Obviously, that there's so much information, they can only know so much. So what I've started to see is, like, it's a lot more common for friends to, like, learn about different things from sources that they wouldn't have anticipated that can be really helpful. Like, I have a friend who is a lawyer who's very by the book in terms of what she does for her care. And she discovered something as simple as, and it's a really fun exercise, just lifting your big toe, even in your shoe, keeping all your toes down and moving it down really slowly when she's stressed out in court and dealing with a stressful situation. That was something that normally she would be like, I'm not open to this at all. But she tried it out. She's like, oh, now
I'm so sorry. I'm hearing it echoing. I don't know. Do you have to open device or? Oh, okay. I don't know. If you talk to me and say hello, please, just to check.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's great. It's much more clearer now. We can continue. So sorry.
No, that's okay. What I was saying is, I think it's a slippery slope in the best of ways. The way that people are opening up to alternative forms of care, right? They learn that, oh, um, if I make these small changes, and that could be like, for example, I've learned that when I am really like I'm having a headache, did I drink water today? Did I sleep enough? Right? I've learned to check in with myself on those types of things, which I learned from more holistic and alternative forms of care. It's nothing mind blowing, but it's really then I learn like more nuanced things, right? Oh, my jaw hurts. Was I stressed out because of a conversation I had or something that was going through my mind? Instead of, oh, my jaw hurts, let me take a painkiller. Do you know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it's one of those, and that's a very small example, but then it goes into, oh, my jaw hurts, I have a knot here. Acupuncture is actually magical for that treatment, and you would never, I never considered it as an example. There's certain types of breath work that can really calm you down, and we're starting to see that more in the mainstream, that people talk about, like taking a deep breath when you're going through a stressful situation, but there's more you can do. So all I'm saying is, I see a trend where when people try something and they find that it works, they tend to be more open to exploring other things. And it's a slow roll, right? It's like any change in your life, it's going to take time. But we've seen that there are just limits to what exists in the typical medical spheres because of the way the systems are set up, and it's intended that way. It's the safety measure. It's the right thing to do. But there are going to be limits, right? Like if you break your leg, go to the emergency. That is the best thing to do, right? But if you are having instability issues with your legs, sometimes physical therapy can help. For me, I had to find a very specific type of physical therapist. The average one that was covered by insurance didn't work. So baby steps, you find what works for you.
No, no, it's Wi-Fi, but it's alright. You want them? Mm. This is why I'm also saying that 2016 is going to be different, because, yeah, at least I can say I would have Wi-Fi to a degree, if that makes sense. But anyway.
Oh, great. Okay. I was just about to email you.
Hi, yeah, so you can finish what you were saying and then we'll kind of get to the next bit of the segment.
Yeah,
But
I think
yes,
it's
please,
you were asking me
go ahead.
what you see in terms of trends personally or kind of across the board in terms of holistic and alternative care. I think the big misnomer that people think of is like it's all woo woo is like the term that some people would talk about. I would say that it's just looking at your body as an entire being, and less about like, oh, my arm hurts, let's put it in a sling, right? It's more about let's take care of everything.
Yeah,
And knowing that your arm might hurt because of your posture or because of a whole variety of things. And what I see is when people start to look into outside of the traditional kind of conventional care and find things that work for them, they tend to explore and slowly add on more as to what works and fits for them. And it's just truly about taking care of yourself as a whole person. That is the goal, I think, in general with life, is to learn about yourself and find better ways to take care of yourself.
thank you so much for sharing, and that it will be so helpful to my community. And what I would also love to ask is, in your personal opinion, do you believe in world peace, or
Yeah,
what
I
does world
think
peace look like for you
I think world
personally?
peace is a really, it's a concept that has changed over time. For like over my lifetime, for example, I've seen different things. I think that peace starts within. It starts on the individual level, making peace with whatever situation we're handed. And I think that everyone has a different capacity for it. But once we're able to kind of acknowledge that and move forward, it makes a difference on our community and it has ripple effects. Um, if that is helpful.
Thank you so much. And is there any way that my community can visit or support you? And how do they
So you
find
can
out more
find me
about
on LinkedIn
your business
if you
and
want to talk to
yourself?
me directly. Alenka, last name Kyslik. My Instagram for the business is Saha, that's SAHA.collective. And it's sahacollective.com if you want to take a look at what we're building and what's going on with us. I think there's lots of different ways you can connect, but I would love to talk.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It was really... Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We'd like to say a big thanks to the team behind the scenes and to people who have supported along the way. If it wasn't for your support, this podcast would not be possible. So we'd like to also share to our listeners to share your story, to always spotlight your signature uniqueness as we join together to support one another by sharing, liking and subscribing to this special edition of China Spotlight Captivating Awareness.